All right, guys. Hi, hello. Welcome to Friday. It's Friday, right? Again, I can't tell the days anymore, which is fine. But what we got going on today is we're going to continue getting to know our civil rights movement unit. Yesterday, we set things up with some of the, I guess, causes or the reasons why this movement picks up so much steam over the course of, again, the 1950s as we go forward. Yesterday, we talked about Brown versus Board, and then you were supposed to look at an unfortunate incident that happened with Emmett Till. It's a tragedy that is not uncommon from that time period, but as I mentioned with Brown versus Board in the Little Rock Nine, this is a new era of American experience in the fact that people are getting a chance to see news play out in a much more real way with the introduction of television. And the transferring of information is just so much faster. And it becomes a lot harder for people to ignore the different types of experiences that are happening during this time. So, what we're going to talk about next, and if you did your homework about Emmett Till, this leads perfectly into what, again, the end of that activity talked about into what today is going to be about, is the Montgomery bus boycott. Montgomery, Alabama being the setting of a pretty famous woman saying no. We're going to talk about how that refusal is going to stem into a large scale boycott or protest against the discrimination within public transportation. We're going to get introduced to the guy on the front of this whole PowerPoint right here, again, who play an integral role in directing the civil rights movement as we go forward and his organization he's with. The item before the work to be completed are it's the directions for your next homework assignment, which isn't due until next Tuesday, so you got a bigger window. And it has to do with this particular topic, just getting into it a little bit more. And then there'll be work to be completed. So, Montgomery bus boycott. As we get into the mid 1950s, of course, board versus education is a huge win, but a lot of people don't think things are happening fast enough. There is an impatience amongst the African American community, amongst the people who are trying to take a stand, and they really want to start taking more direct action, doing something, not sitting back and letting the lawyers talk it out in the court, but actually trying to make a point and get a change to happen in a much more real day-to-day kind of way. So they're going to get that opportunity in December of 1955 in Montgomery, Alabama. A woman by the name of Rosa Parks is going to board a bus, and during that time, during all of this time in the United States, remembering that segregation is legal, that it is okay to keep blacks and whites separate. Again, separate but equal is the go-to argument as to why they can allow that. Of course, Brown versus Board starts to chip away at that, and the incident with Emmett Till, it just, again, it's pushing people in the direction that they have to stand up for themselves. And Rosa Parks actually cites that Emmett Till's murder is something that helps to motivate her in this moment. On public transportation in Alabama at that time, again, blacks always sat in the back of the bus and whites got to sit in the front. Again, Rosa Parks, who had worked a full day, was sitting on the bus when she was asked to move into the back where there was no seats left, and she refused. Of course, when she refused, she is breaking the law. She'll be arrested. And the news coverage of this is very, very fast, and it gets people talking quickly. Because of this, what we're going to see happen is that the organizers in Montgomery at that time, and there already had been an established organization kind of laying down some groundwork about what they wanted to do and how they wanted to make a change. They seized this opportunity. They're like, okay, this is perfect. So we're going to see a very young Martin Luther King Jr. is going to be asked to lead a boycott against the bus system. We've talked about boycotts before, and I'm hoping that you know them. But with boycotts, this is the idea of refusing to buy that good or to use that service. It's an economic I guess, approach to showcasing displeasure. So if you didn't like a company, you could not buy any of their products, and that is you boycotting those goods. So the people of Montgomery, specifically the African American community of Montgomery, they're going to be asked to not ride the bus. This, of course, is going to be in conjunction with a legal movement. That's not going to stop, even as we start talking about more proactive ways of, again, getting a message across. The approach or the attempt of the NAACP to get laws changed through the system, or it's still going to happen over the course of 381 days. So over a whole year, African Americans refuse to ride the bus. They still have to get around. So we're going to see that through MLK and his leadership, through his organization, which I'll talk about soon, they made sure that people could get where they needed to go. So whether that was organizing carpools with a few people who had cars, or walking from place to place, this whole approach of a boycott is nonviolent resistance. It is, again, setting a tone for the early days of the civil rights movement. We're setting up an example that if you want to get something done, nonviolent is the way to do it, because people can't just brush it aside or say, well, they're overreacting, they're being dramatic. Nope, they're making a stand and they're sticking to it, which is a huge, again, asset to trying to get a successful protest off the ground. So let's talk about Martin Luther King Jr., who, in my opinion, is one of the more interesting men from history. Again, he's definitely got some really beautiful things to say, as well as a great message that I think is still important in this contemporary time that we live in. So a little bit of background about him. Martin Luther King Jr. is an ordained minister. Again, you'll also hear him referred to as doctor, and he has a doctorate. He's not a medical doctor. He has a doctorate in theology, which is, of course, religion. And he is coming into this as a young African American man with a pretty, I guess, set philosophy. He is, as the leader of this early movement, like I said, he's going to set an example for a lot of other people as we go forward. And people are going to look to him for how to react and how to do this. He believed in nonviolent resistance. He is a very well-educated man. And he, again, really supported the ideas of people who came before him. So obviously Jesus Christ, turn the other cheek. Henry David Thoreau, A. Philip Randolph, who was the gentleman that FDR dealt with during World War II. Gandhi. Again, these are all nonviolent protest sort of leaders, and those are the people that he looks to for how is he going to lead his organization, his people through this. Again, he is, like I said, he says a lot of really beautiful things throughout his life. We will not hate you, but cannot obey your unjust laws. We will soon wear you down by our capacity to suffer. And he suffered. Martin Luther King Jr. and his family faced so much violence throughout this entire time, because often when people feel threatened, they lash out, and that will definitely be the case for Martin Luther King Jr., but he never wavers, not once. Always remains nonviolent, always sticks to his guns. The sole force is how he refers to it, is how committed is he to this approach, and he is, even through, again, bombing and assassination attempts, and again, people hurting and reaching out and trying to get him to stop. The organization that he is going to head up is the SCLC, or the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. And again, as you can see in the name, this is something that is going to center around an element of the African American community that we talked about. I know that with my students, I definitely did, after the Civil War. Remembering the Civil War, the federal government couldn't provide a lot of support for this new free African American community. So the church kind of became the center of their lives. It provided them with the things that they couldn't get elsewhere. And it's going to help provide throughout this entire movement. So the SCLC uses churches as kind of their base of operations. So every new town that they visit or each new place that they lay down some roots, it's where they're going to plan. It's where people are going to be able to go. This is considered a grassroots movement because it's going to start with everyday people. So just going out and canvassing, again, getting contact with people and explaining to them what you're all about and seeing if they'll be supportive of you. Rosa Parks, in the days leading up to her saying no, had actually reached out to the SCLC to see kind of what they're doing. She sat in on a meeting. And it definitely helped influence her decision on that day. The SCLC is a large scale organization. They also have a sort of a branch, I would guess I would call it, that is the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, or SNCC is how I'm going to call it often. You have to realize that we're coming into a new era with a big generation coming in. Young people are going to play a huge role in the civil rights movement, just like they did in forming culture and forming, again, the opinions of the 1950s. They also will have a lot to say about the civil rights movement as well. That's it for notes today. We don't have a lot of notes because, again, there's a little bit more work to be done. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to talk through the work that is going to be on your activity that has to do with the Montgomery bus boycott. It's pretty straightforward. The, again, overall directions will be posted to Classroom along with this overall, but I figured I'd talk through it. So we're going to do a read like a historian. You guys, over the course of this semester and last, you've seen these a bunch, okay? So the way that this one is broken down is very similar to other ones we've done. The Japanese internment one is the one that kind of jumps into my brain as we look at it. It's broken into 3 rounds. And as you look at the differing documents, again, each divvied up for each of the rounds that are on here, what you're trying to determine is, why was the bus boycott successful? There's a lot of protests that go down throughout the civil rights movement, and a lot of them don't work. They don't see any kind of change. In Montgomery, change happens. A lawsuit makes it all the way to the Supreme Court, and they're going to pass a law that says that they cannot segregate on public transportation. So what about this particular bus boycott, this boycott in general, helped to make it so successful? So for each round, you're going to read the documents, trying to pay attention as you read actively about what is it in this document that they describe is a good reason. And then in the box after that, you're going to be writing, what are those reasons? Again, remembering that reasons should be more, I guess, big ideas, open-ended. The evidence is the specific information. So if you just nudge, nudge, wink, wink, decided after reading the first document that one of the reasons is that they had strong leadership, and that would be a reason. And then your specific evidence would reference Martin Luther King Jr. and what he did. That's just one example, but there are other reasons in that first document as well. Once you finish with that, then you're going to fill out the claim. At the end of each of these, there's a claim kind of in the middle. The claim should be based off of just that round, so not trying to think beyond. So after you read the first document, fill out your stuff, and then answer your question, the reason this was successful was blank, and I know this because of blank. Use that as evidence. The more work you put into the boxes, the easier the claims are. You'll do the same exact thing for round 2, except for it's 2 documents, and then the last one is round 3. Again, reading the last one, filling out the box. Of course, at the very end, we've got a final claim that should be based on all of the evidence. So again, for round 1, it's just document A you're basing your opinion on. Round 2, it's just C and D. And then by the end, by the final claim, you can use any evidence from any of the documents. If you get more than one piece of evidence that supports a similar reason, use that. Okay. Again, when you're writing this is the only thing that has to be in complete sentences. Again, I'm looking for a claim. Please focus. Don't give me so many reasons, even though if you find a lot. Again, so try and pick one or two that you think, well, this is really it. This is the reason that the bus boycott was so successful. And then support that with a specific evidence from at least two different documents and explain it to me through your analysis. Remember, your analysis should be as if I know nothing. Okay, I know it's easy to make assumptions that it's Miss Lofi knows. She knows what this is all about, so I don't have to explain it. You need to explain it so I know you know. Okay. I guess last thing, just work to be completed, checking in with that. There was a mistake on yesterday's PowerPoint with a date. I'm hoping that doesn't throw people because the actual assignment was posted correctly with the date, but we'll see how it goes, I suppose. Work to be completed. Monday, please double check that classroom. There'll be a new lecture. Again, there'll be some reminders and stuff. No assignment on Monday. Again, work to be completed by the end of today. It would be the Emmett Till worksheet. If you didn't finish it yesterday, you should definitely get that done today. Again, work to be completed by Tuesday. So you're going to have all the way through Tuesday to finish the Montgomery bus boycott. Again, don't put it off to the last second. This is, I know, a struggle for you guys in some instances, but you got to get this done as soon as possible. Of course, a reminder that this is a new unit. There is the possibility that if you get really swamped one day and you can't get something finished, that you got to get it into me by the end of the unit if you want me to give you any credit for it. And your daily reminder that your local history project is due 4/20. Again, final draft audio, get those submitted to me as soon as possible. Don't wait to the last second. It will be a bad time. I hope you guys all have a good day and a good weekend.